So, after 18 minutes in the water, they set off for the bike run. Navigating these narrow and twisting roads is going to be lethal. It's getting hotter and more humid, and the drafting judges will be watching every move after recent controversy. And into the 40-kilometre race, Wells and Brew drop back straight away, and this man, Brooks Clark, powers into the lead. In the pack, now following Clark, is where the real battle is taking shape. Mark Allen has slowly moved up the field. And the 15-year-old wonder boy from Dallas, Lance Armstrong, was challenging world champion Mark Allen on the near side. Was Bermuda to be his title? At this point of the course, the downhill sections help create speeds in excess of 40 miles an hour. Armstrong and Pig, who will be first to pounce on Clark.
On the end. Around, Josh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rack your bike to your spot, guys. Which way out, Charlie?
Dave Scott and Scott Tinley know by now that this is not going to be their championship.
What about the women then? I think
this man, Mark Allen, now in his shadow and bearing down. Mike Pigg appears in his shadow. And behind him and hanging on really bravely, the 15-year-old Lance Armstrong.
On the bike course, the men are coming back now into the transition area. That's Rob Mackle, who is right now leading Dave Scott. Rob Mackle with a great bike time, same with Dave Scott. Mike Plant, what's the feeling in the transition area?
Scott Molina is conspicuous in his absence here. Dave Scott leads Rob Mackle off the bike. Rob is an improving runner.
Where we're looking here, Rob Mackle is about to learn a lesson in triathlons. Rob is kind of settling into a pace, and Dave goes by him here. This is what makes Dave Scott, Dave Scott. When he's on, when he's ready to race, nobody goes harder and faster. Dave has an interesting philosophy. He really doesn't just like to win. I've seen him race time and time again, and what he likes to do is not just win, but destroy his opponents. He went by Rob Mackle, I don't know, and left Rob sitting in the middle of the street like a stone. Dave is the only, I mean, he's as fast as he ever was. And this is the turnaround. Now Dave sees the first man is not Scott Molina or someone else, it's Rob Mackle, who he knows he can outrun. That when Dave Scott says he's going to do it, he does indeed. This is a guy who is driven by goals. Here's our second and third place guy, and we can tell now that the second place, the guy on the right, in any case at this point, is Lance Armstrong. This is rather surprising. Lance Armstrong is a 17-year-old kid from Plano, Texas, who emerged at the beginning of last year and surprised everyone with his cycling ability, but not his running ability, I'll tell you. And in second place, moving ahead now and looking maybe like he might be in control or taking control, is Steve Fitch. Up with the guys who have been faster than he over the last several years. Dave Scott has passed them. Look at this, 147 something up there. This is heating up. Steve Fitch still in second place, but Lance Armstrong has not dropped back. I thought he might be dropping back, but not so. Lance, interestingly enough, is a member of Team USA cycling team. He will be going to Moscow in July to compete in the World Junior Cycling Championships. But he can't decide whether he wants to be a cyclist or a triathlete. I'll tell you, he's doing both very well right now. Lance could be Dave Scott's son, but today he is not Dave Scott's son. In fact, he is Dave Scott's competitor. Lance Armstrong finishing in second place, outsprinting Steve Fitch to the finish line. What a great job for Lance today. He's got to be high as a kite. And here's Steve Fitch. Look, I'm sure that...
Exclusive Sports Marketing and Sunshine Network. present the 1989 Coca-Cola National Championship Sprint Triathlon, hosted at the Waterways of Aventura, and presented by the Water Place Shops. But Armstrong has made a name for himself, and this summer he worked out with the National Junior Cycling Team, and that is probably one of the reasons that he leads a pack right now that includes Mike Pigg and Clark Campbell in the men's cycling professional group.
Lance Armstrong now is breaking away from Mike Pigg, going up the William Lehman Causeway. He's out of his saddle. He needs to get a bigger lead here, John.
And this could be the toughest part of the race, the breaking point for the men on the bicycle ride, as you take that hill and head into the home stretch and you go down Country Club Drive.
And the men are coming into the transition. Mike Plant is with Lance Armstrong as he leads.
This is Lance Armstrong off the bike first. Lance Armstrong, the 18-year-old from Plano, Texas. And Mike Pigg is right behind him, straight ahead of you. Lance Armstrong is obviously going to win that $300 run preem.
We're back for the third leg of the Sprint Triathlon at the Waterways, and Lance Armstrong, the leader at the 1 mile mark with a 20-second margin.
It's surprising he still has 20 seconds, John. I thought that Pigg or Robinson would have made up some time on him. He's running real well right now.
And, of course, they have just completed a 13.4-mile bicycle ride, so the running styles are not the most fluid that you might see. This is Lance Armstrong now on the boardwalk with a half mile to go, and we talked about that this is a loop course, as he is wrapping around where the race started on the swim course.
He's psyched up right now, John. He knows he's got the win. He does not see anyone in sight. He has kept that 20-second lead over Mike Pigg. Back to Lance Armstrong. Lance has got about a fourth of a mile left. He's going to take a couple turns here and come into a finish line where he'll see about 7,000 spectators, and he's got to be excited, John.
Keep in mind, he is just 18 years old, and he has already been on the circuit for 2 years. When he was just 16 years old, he finished in 4th place at the 1987 National Championship Sprint Triathlon, which was then held at Boca Point. He was the first off the bicycle then, but he was run down by 3 men. That does not look like the case this year.
That year, Scott Tinley mentioned that boys will be boys. He finished very strong on the bike and then got ran down. Lance has got to feel good today. He's not going to be run down by 2 of the top people in the profession, Mike Pigg and Harold Robinson.
And I don't think anybody will be calling him boy anymore, specifically Pigg and Robinson, who have won this race the last 2 years. 18-year-old Lance Armstrong as he heads into the last 120 yards of this Sprint Triathlon. Remember, he did most of the damage on the bicycle ride, which is where he really worked on it during the summer. And that's what put him into the position he is in now. He's got about 50 yards to go, and the crowd is rooting him on as he heads in for the 1989 championship.
Lance Armstrong, the 1989 champion of the Coca-Cola National Championship Sprint Triathlon, and he's excited, John.
And the story at the beginning.